All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
I am so very excited to be here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for jumping into the chat even before the show started. It's kind of, I know people have found a community here, and I love it. I've found a community here, and I need a community, believe me. Albert is here today. Our regular producer is on the case, and Kim is here as well.
Kim, how are you?
Kim, who having already kind of screwed up, to be honest, started yesterday, but she also did something really good yesterday. So, and like what she doesn't normally do, she posted the podcast yesterday, Albert. So it's hard for me to be too tough on her, you know, because she did step up.
I blame you.
And of course, she'll always find a way that it wasn't really her fault, or, you know, really, if you hadn't asked me to do this, and actually when you consider that,
blame.
You know,
when blame is due, I accept the blame. All I'm saying is that my bad things should cancel out my good things. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
Girl, you just woo.
Wow, your bad things should be canceled out by your good things.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So then I enter today's show with an even playing field.
I see. Okay.
Opportunity for success.
I'll take a meeting
hand.
on that. You know.
Yeah.
All right, my bad things should be canceled out by my good things. That should be on a bumper sticker somewhere. That's a really great thing, you know.
There's balance. There's balance with that.
Right. Yeah. There's balance. You get the balance to the universe. That's
reasonable. It's logical. I don't see why you have a problem with this.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
She does not want to apologize. She's all about her good things canceling out her bad things.
Yeah.
You feel that you've built up a reservoir of good things,
right,
to the point that you can be screwing up a lot and still really never move into the negatives, or your point.
Well, yeah, it shouldn't matter. I mean, at this point, my good things outweigh my bad things by so much that we should just really overlook the bad things.
I knew we were getting to that, really. Like, I can be a total F up from here on out. I've been so great in the past.
That's right.
Well, I admire your...
This is no picnic, no summer camp.
And I admire your creativity in looking at the framework. We're going to get into a lot of stuff today. I'm glad to have everyone here. As I've mentioned, Albert and Kim are here. I received numerous emails from many of you.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
I really did receive a lot of positive letters about my loss of Frenchie, my dear cat. Courtney and I have had Frenchie for many years. She was 16 years old. I loved her dearly, and I still love her. And most of the morning I've spent crying. Most of the night I've spent crying. Most of yesterday I was in tears. And it's really, really hard. A very emotional person, as you know. And here's this creature that is everything to us. You know, it's so soulful. And so when the morning sun comes in and she's not there, it's so difficult, you know. So I think many of you understand this, and many of you have reached out, and it's really sweet. And I pushed all of your sentiments that were expressed in email to Courtney, and she wanted me to express her appreciation as well. So thank you. I'll tell you something wild, and then I'll get to it. So last night, I'm really struggling with this, you know, and I know that loss is a difficult thing for all of us, and I also know that loss, and I'm kind of talking about this because I kind of wish that more people talked about this. I feel we all experience loss in a different way. The Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, what was there, the 5 stages of grief? Is it denial?
Anger.
Denial, thank you. Mm-hmm. Anger, bargaining. I know the last one's acceptance. I've got denial, anger, bargaining. I forget what the other one is. I think there are 5 of them now. And you can
Google it.
Denial.
Denial stages, Mark. You'll remember once you get to that part.
Once you get to the stage. Sometimes you don't get them all. Sometimes you don't hit them all. Yeah. You know. Sometimes, but it's a really clean breakdown of the way. Now I'm really curious what they are, Albert. So if you can just check.
It's denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance.
Depression, that's it. Yeah. So I'm really kind of worried. It's funny. I'll tell you something between us girls. I was kind of worried about Courtney falling into a depression
Yeah.
over this. She had a special relationship with Frenchie, and I'm deeply emotional. I don't tend to fall into depression, and now I'm worried about me. The 5 stages of grief: denial, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance. Yeah. So many of us deal with this. We all really deal with it, right, on one level or another. And these 5 stages of grief, I think, were established by this brilliant Elizabeth, isn't it Elizabeth Kubler-Ross? Is that her name? I believe so. And she did so much work on grief and grief counseling. So anyway, let me now cut to what I was going to tell you. To make a long story longer, last night, I can't get to sleep. I haven't slept in days, just very hard. Me in and out of sleep, and I'm weeping, right? And I get on ChatGPT, and I tell ChatGPT everything that happened with Frenchie, how she got sick, how we took her to the hospital, how we had hope, how she had this life-extending surgery, how she was doing well after the surgery, and then suddenly took a turn, and we got a call during the show that she'd passed away. Then they brought her back with these extraordinary measures, but ultimately we had to say goodbye to her, late on Tuesday. I tell ChatGPT all that, and I say, can you say something to me that will make me feel better? And ChatGPT was amazing. It was incredible. It was like the distillation of all your friends and all the sentiments, all the things I mean, it's not your fault. You did what you could. She had a loving home for so long. All these things. But they still don't get integrated in. You're still devastated by it, of course.
Sure.
So ChatGPT just said all that which I knew, all that many of you have said when you send emails, and you're so beautiful, and you're relating your own experience with loss. And I'm here to tell you that it worked. It made me cry again, of course, as it recapitulated my situation.
Not fake. That's real.
Yeah, but it was unreal. Chat effing GPT in the middle of the night, in the loneliness and loss. It was there for me.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm not.
That's not fake. That's real.
Well, it is kind of fake, but it is because of the learning model that is there. It's like talking to, and then it asked me, do you want me to do this? And I said, no, this is great for now. But just a note, I'm just saying AI stepped up for me in my moment of grief for at least a moment. So,
well, I would tell you that AI, there's no person behind it, right? It's just a computer talking to you. So it shouldn't mean so much, but it was created by humans, and it has taken information and input from everybody almost. And so what you had there was the vast resources of humanity spewing back at you.
That is a really great way to put it.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah, I thought the same thing, but not as well articulated as Kim just did it. You're right. You have humanity, in a sense, the human experience with loss speaking to you in that moment. I got many emails from Richard Delamater.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Richard Delamater, who is the Hunter S. Thompson of this show. He does a lot of he likes the weed, and he likes to party, and he likes to enjoy life. Smart guy, obviously. But he feels I won't do it today because I've already spent time talking about Frenchie, but he feels that we move into the serious stuff too quickly. He feels that people are there on the chat so early, even before we come on the air, and we should spend some time on those. And of course, Richard was into the chat early, and the first person into the chat was Zero Sum today. So Maud was second, and Nullifidian third. So I will try to pay more attention. I do read it. I see that it's Steve Martin's birthday, and Halle Berry's birthday, and Doc Holliday's birthday, David Crosby, Gary Larson, Danielle Steele, Trevor Bannister, and Susan Olsen. Nullifidian keeps track of that. And Ricky O'Bear, who's a regular OG. These are all OGs on the show. So the other thing that Richard Delamater feels is that we should have a T-shirt for this new branded group of viewers and listeners called the Remarkables.
I agree.
So we'll try to get that organized. And Richard, your many communications are appreciated. But I'm overwhelmed by your emails. Well, let's try to boil them down to just maybe 3. Let's put 3 a day. Okay, that's what we're going to do. All right, 3 a day. All right.
Does he have a new limit, a new cap?
I'd like to. I love hearing from him. And here's the great thing about Richard Delamater's emails: they're short. They're just like a line or two. You know what I mean?
He's just thinking. He's just
he's thinking. He
thinks and sends it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do appreciate him, and I've kind of given him a hard time. But I do appreciate all the input. So thank you for that. And we'll try to get the T-shirt organized.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We are here. It's a live show, 2 to 4 in the East. We are 11 to 1 in the West. And however you take us in, we go out across most major podcast platforms as an audio podcast. So you can find us wherever you listen to audio podcasts as well. The President of the United States is speaking in the Oval Office. He's speaking about some stuff that we'll get to in a second. I first wanted to get to something as people maybe filter in. I will share a piece of news with you. It always is shocking to me when the men of the cloth, Kim and Albert, I see them as somehow closer to God. Those men and women of the cloth. Oh, it's only men of the cloth mostly. And once in a while, one steps out, and that's what we have in this case, an Alabama priest accused of having a sexual relationship with a teen stripper.
What?
Yeah. Catholic priest allegedly starting a years-long relationship with a 17-year-old stripper in Alabama.
How is a 17-year-old girl allowed to strip?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it might be a state, Alabama, where maybe 16 is the age of consent to begin with, and you may be able to make a lot of decisions about your professional life, at an earlier age. That's my guess.
My daughter informed me that here in California, 16 is the age of consent, and she should be allowed to get a nose ring. And I told her that's not how it works here. No.
Well, there's the age of consent in California, and then there's the age of consent in this house.
That's right.
The way, yeah. And sadly, we are at odds. Robert Sullivan is his name. He's 61, and he's on leave as a pastor. Really? Yeah. Gives him more time to go to the strip clubs. You know what I'm saying?
On leave. How about you're fired?
Our Lady of Sorrows Church in Homewood, Alabama, is where he was doing his preaching. He initiated a relationship with Heather Jones when she was a teenager. Now she's grown up, and she's chirping about it. And by the way, he paid her hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep quiet about all of this. Hundreds of thousands of dollars? Where does a priest in Alabama get hundreds of thousands of dollars?
I guess
that might be the second investigation you want to do.
It's a lucrative career right there.
He offered her a $273,000 non-disclosure agreement.
What?
In exchange for, quote, an ongoing relationship that would include financial support in exchange for private companionship. That agreement included sex, she says.
Mm-hmm.
She was raised in foster care because of her mother's severe neglect.
Aww.
She was hesitant, but ultimately agreed to his deal. And now she is speaking up.
Yeah.
He initially, when he went to the strip club, posed as a doctor. He took her out to shop, eat, and drink, stay at hotels in at least 6 different Alabama cities over the course of their relationship, which lasted until this year. Met her at 17. Now she's in her early 30s. He bought her a phone and even paid for her to go to rehab while she suffered from addiction and depression. And between July and March of this year, so between July of 2024 and March of this year, the Venmo account under her name had been paid almost $120,000. That's just in the last year.
That's a heavy collection plate.
Man, I don't know where he's getting this money. He's been a priest for more than 32 years.
Wait, a priest or a pastor? Is he a Catholic priest?
He's a Catholic priest.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not good, Kim.
No.
It's not good.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Yeah. I imagine he might be a little
How does
irritated.
a Catholic priest get that much money?
That's what I asked before.
He must
I'm
be
telling you.
diverting funds from other Catholic things, charities. I would dig into the finances on that.
Maybe he's writing to the Vatican saying, hey, we have special needs here at the church, to spread the word of God. It's turned out it's more expensive than we thought.
I'm bad.
Dear-
I'm sorry.
Did
Dear
you show
Pope
a picture of
Leo.
him, Albert? I was
Yeah, he
busy.
did.
You did.
I
Okay.
saw it.
Okay.
Dear
All right.
Pope Leo, I'd really like to exploit a foster child.
Congratulations on your new popeship.
Mm.
Before you get too settled, I wonder if you had a couple of $100,000 so I can pay off my non-disclosure agreement.
The Mark Thompson Show.
But the good news is, I'll hit you with this, and then I'll get into Donald Trump's latest announcement on Social Security, also on Ukraine and Russia. I'll get into all of that. The good news for all of you Bond fans, the James Bond film and you'll remember Amazon has purchased the MGM library, including James Bond, that Jeff Bezos is reportedly obsessed, is the quote, with casting his wife Lauren Sanchez in a major role in the new James Bond series.
Oh, God.
Yeah, just what you wanted. A chance to rock it in the Bond world with Lauren Sanchez. She's
Here
very
come the lip.
va-va-va-voom.
Mm.
Yeah. So we'll keep you posted on that, but I wanted to make you aware of it. Looks as though Lauren Sanchez is going to show up in the next Bond film, or at least in a Bond film soon.
Imagine those lips on the big screen. It'll be like the whole screen full of lips.
You know what? How dare you make fun of my
Girl, you
girl?
just woo.
I love my Lauren.
Lips on steroids.
You know what,
Whoa.
Kim? This is girl on girl hate,
Sorry.
and I
Can we
do
get a little
not.
more filler?
I
Yeah.
do not like
we
it.
should- We could try
ignoring it, sir.
I'm trying, but she's making it difficult.
Yeah.
I love all women,
Uh-huh.
and Lauren, she has a lot going on,
Yeah.
and I say more power to her.
Uh-huh.
All right. That's Jeff, and that's the update on Jeff and Lauren. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
you can be as cheeky and as snide as you want in the chat. I don't care, but I will defend my Lauren until the end. Now, let's get into what's happening at the White House. Kim was just mentioning in breaking news that ahead of the summit, and I'll talk about the summit
Yeah.
in a minute, because this is a bizarre thing that's happening as usual. It's really kind of turning the world of summits and the world of international meetings and diplomacy on its side. I'll get to it in a second. But right now, Donald Trump is making some pronouncements in the Oval Office. And
Lies.
one of the, isn't that right, Kim?
He's telling lies. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to show it, Albert? What do you have? You got that. This is just happening now as we're on the air. Here is this is just from a few minutes ago.
Are you all set?
He's waiting for cameras, I guess, or yeah. All right, he's
He has to
seated.
tell us that America's the hottest country.
Ladies and gentlemen on my right, we recruited him. We tried to get the best person. We got a man that you'll hear in a second has done an amazing job with respect to Social Security. He's running it, and he's running it like nobody ever even dreamt possible. And it's the 90th anniversary right now of Social Security. So today we celebrate that
Hope it makes its
90th
91st.
anniversary of one of the most significant pieces of legislation ever signed into law, the Social Security Act of 1935, and we're going to make it stronger, bigger, and better. Really doing
That's
a job.
why we dismantled it
In the
already.
campaign, I made a sacred pledge to our seniors that I would always protect Social Security, and under this administration, we're keeping that promise and strengthening Social Security for generations to come. You keep hearing stories that in 6 years, 7 years, Social Security will be gone, and it will be if the Democrats ever get involved because they don't know what they're doing. But it's going to be around a long time with us. Very much, you'll be surprised to hear some of the numbers. I'm delighted to be joined by the Commissioner of the Social Security Administration, Frank Bisignano. Oh, in the world of business, in fact, I wrote some of the little things down that he's had an amazing, he was Chief Operating Officer of JP Morgan Chase. He worked for Jamie Dimon. And Jamie Dimon said that he was amazing. So think of that, Chief Operating Officer, JP Morgan Chase, had a storied career. Then he went to First Data. For those in the business, you'd know it's the largest payment company anywhere in the world. And worked for Henry Kravis, and it was in big trouble. He took it over as CEO. He made it incredible. They merged with Fiserv, and he became CEO of that, and that became extremely successful. That was in Milwaukee. I guess they have the Milwaukee Arena.
Because we need to know that.
We had some good success.
He surrounds himself with successful business people from Wall Street, et cetera, the Billionaire Boys Club that I've talked about in his cabinet. I mean, it's on display constantly. But let me hear him on Social Security. Here you go.
And what he's done in a few months is amazing. Almost 60 million American seniors rely on Social Security for peace of mind and a life of dignity and retirement. These Americans paid into the system, and they deserve leaders in Washington who are going to protect the benefits they've had and protect Social Security. Under Biden, Social Security went down like nobody's ever seen it, deteriorated. There's never been anything like it. The 4 years of Biden were very, very destructive. It couldn't have gone on much longer.
There's never been anything like this.
Destroyed. It was being destroyed. The average call,
I've never seen anything like it.
All-time high of more than 42 minutes. Field office wait times were at 32 minutes, which is unheard of.
The beauty now is those field offices have been closed, so you don't need to get any wait time at all there.
In recorded history. In other words, it was run just like the country was run. It was run really badly. But I'm pleased to report that under our leadership, and Frank in particular, the changes he's made and what he's done is sort of a miracle. Sort of like what happened with the country as a whole. Field office wait times are now down 30% since last year, and it looks like it's going to a total record number. And the record was set in a long time ago when the world was a lot different place. We're gonna beat
total
that record.
BS about the wait
Wait
times. Total
are down
BS about the offices.
73%,
Now, please.
while serving twice as many customers per day.
Sure.
The disability claims
We just had
backlog is
the
down
Social Security
26%.
expert on
Seniors
last
now
week.
have
Go watch that
24/7
conversation.
online access to their accounts, which they never had before, whereas under Biden, the website was down 29 hours a week.
I wish there was a red light behind him that would flash every time he told a lie.
They were always maintaining it, but they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They had a person running that had no idea what they were doing. Among my very first acts was to order all government employees to return to the office or be removed
For immediate
from
dismissal.
job, which means our Social Security offices are now open for full business hours 5 days a week.
Yeah,
And there's
right.
5 of them
Unlike
nationwide.
being shut down all the time, we're open at record levels also. We're making it really great for the people that want and demand Social Security, and they paid into the system. They deserve it. Last month, I signed one big, beautiful bill and allowed no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Okay, so how's that? Not bad, right? No tax on Social Security for our seniors, and to protect our benefits, we've already kicked nearly 275,000 illegal aliens off of the Social Security system. These are people, many of them have already left the country, and yet we were sending them checks all the time.
That's ridiculous.
And 275,000, and that number is now even larger than that, Frank. It's an unbelievable job. And what that's doing is making the system strong. It's making it strong. Biden never kicked anybody off. Everybody joined. And we're carrying out historic deportations to remove many more illegals committing Social Security fraud. It's the Social Security fraud that was taking place at levels that nobody's ever seen.
I think I need a mimosa.
12.4 million names listed in the Social Security database, over 120 years of age. Think of that. So we had 12.4 million names where they were over 120 years old. Is that
More
right?
lies.
That's a
lies.
hell of
Yeah.
a statement.
So
I have a feeling, Dan, that's not really gonna.
I'll
really
watch a
didn't
couple
happen,
more
did
seconds
it?
and
So
then
you
let's
have
I'll kind of dismantle
12.4
this.
million names listed in the Social Security database that were over 120 years of age, meaning you were breaking records, because I've never heard of anybody at 125. There were nearly 135,000 people listed who were over 160 years old, and in some cases getting payments. So somebody's getting those payments, and
Okay, let's stop. We know this is totally bogus.
Yeah.
We know it's total BS. We'll start at the end. You already know we've detailed it in many, many different ways with many, many different guests, and I've talked about it at length that the Social Security system sets up something with the age. When they know someone's deceased, when they know someone's no longer eligible for Social Security, they put in a high number so that they don't get a check. Nobody who has 160 years or 130 years as their age is receiving a Social Security check. Social Security, as I've told you over and over, is one of the least affected agencies when it comes to fraud in Washington. There is a total myth being perpetuated and even promulgated today by this president about Social Security. It's total BS. It is not an institution that's beset by fraud. I'll ask you, what percentage of all the Social Security checks that go out, what percentage actually proven to be fraud? Tell me what percentage of Social Security checks this administration, having called Social Security this organization beset by fraud under Biden, what percentage of the Social Security payments that went out were deemed to be fraudulent?
I know the answer, so I won't try it.
Just put up a couple of guesses. 1% says Soul Seeker, less than 0.01%. Phineas J. Whoopi says 0.005%. 2% says William Martinez, a really smart audience. 5% says Jay. Less than 1%. I mean, if I told you it was 5%, you'd go, all right, it's still pretty good. So 95% of them are legit. It's not even 5%. It's not even 1%. The actual Social Security fraud number is 0.03%. Yeah, that's right. So you're taking an organization that has these insanely low numbers of fraud, and you're suggesting that there was a lot of fraud. Now let me go to the illegals. Illegals don't get Social Security, D-head. They don't, okay? Just straight up, that's BS. You know it's BS, or maybe you don't know it's BS. I mean, you can get caught up in your own cycle of bullshit to the point that you think, I'm just going to start repeating this over and over again. And then you start to believe it. And Musk told you that. I don't know what he told you. And since you don't know anything, you just read whatever in your little binder that you have there in the Oval Office. It's pathetic. And then you close Social Security offices nationwide. You made the wait times enormous. Go back and watch the interview we did. I think it was just last week or 2 weeks ago about Social Security. All these closures and then dismantling so many of the systems within Social Security have created an agency that's on the brink. Now there is a risk that Social Security checks aren't going to go out. And then finally, the taxing.
Lie.
Paying no taxes. Do you want to tell them, Kim?
I do,
yeah.
because my stepmother and I were talking, and she said she's so excited that she doesn't have to pay taxes on her Social Security anymore. And I said, what? Let's look it up. And the truth is, there is a senior bonus. It will give you up to $6,000 of a deduction if you're age 65 or older, and it happens in 2025, 2026, 27 and 28, and after that it expires. The notion that you don't have to pay taxes on Social Security anymore, no. You get a $6,000 deduction and it expires in 2028 unless Congress extends it, which who knows. It's called a special personal exemption, And seniors with high incomes won't qualify for it, and seniors with low incomes don't qualify for it. So it may help a few people, but it's not going to help everybody, and it certainly doesn't mean that you don't have to pay taxes on Social Security.
Low-income seniors don't have to pay taxes on Social Security anyway. So if you have less than $35,000 a year coming through the front door, I think that is the number. You don't have to pay taxes anyway. And then, as Kim has said, if you make a lot of money, you got to pay taxes on Social Security.
But
so the only way you really are out of the Social Security mix in terms of paying taxes, it's a weird thing, because I know you think, hey, I paid into this fund, now I'm getting this money, and I have to pay taxes on it. Yeah, you do. And unless you're in that lowest income group, you have to pay taxes on Social Security.
But if you listen to Trump, or if you listen to Fox News or whatever conservative media outlet, you legitimately believe that you won't have to pay taxes on Social Security, and it's incorrect and very temporary.
No political solution to a spiritual problem, says this in the message. That's what he does to every group he targets. He portrays them as being the worst of the worst. He's doing it to gain more power, control, and your freedom. This is what fascists do. I mean, I think that it's true that the othering of these people, they're the problem with the system. That's the reason. So maybe you'll accept that we're wrapping up these Home Depot guys and people who are at a high school graduation and who are working back in a hot restaurant kitchen or a slaughterhouse. You'll understand that we have to deport them. Dean Cain and his crew of ICE will have to go in and throw all these people in a van, send them down to a detention center with unspeakably awful conditions. There already have been a handful of deaths. There'll be way more. We have to do that because they're taking your Social Security and your benefits. No, they're not. No, they're not. Illegal, undocumented immigrants are not taking a dollar of your Social Security. Straight up. So, now, I want to thank you, Mr. President, for, setting the MAGA record straight. Although, inlays, people taking Trump's word is a huge problem. Yeah. These are all lies, and he literally has us wind down to 2034 when our reduction will happen. I'll say it again, only 89 more full checks, and the trust fund is gone. Oh, I see he's talking about Social Security winding down. Yeah, I mean, it's a... look, we just had the big conversation with Social Security expert, was it 10 days ago, maybe it was, and I'll have him on again. And we'll take the temperature of Social Security on down the way. But it's what he was saying was that they have so broken it. They took a chainsaw to the heart of Social Security. We have a short on it. You can find it on our channel. That he is worried and is being told by his IT people that it may be too late. Like it's beyond that threshold after which they are going to have trouble fixing the Social Security damage that was done. They made him read off a paper so he would say what they wanted him to say, and then he got a Big Mac. It says jerk. Okay.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The other thing that we are underway with is the summit in Alaska with Vladimir Putin. And the idea is that Trump and Putin will meet. They will discuss the hostilities in Ukraine, but it all stinks. And I know some of you may look in and say, you've got Trump derangement syndrome, Mark. Why are you always dumping on Trump? Well, you tell me. You tell me how this is. First of all, you don't invite Zelensky to this meeting. I know why, because you're going to be talking a little bit about Ukraine and probably a lot of other stuff that you don't want anybody else to hear. And why do I say that? Because no one will be in the room except for the translators, Trump, and Putin. And Putin's people, perhaps. But I think the idea on the U.S. side, I can tell you with confidence, it will just be Trump and the translator. So this is extraordinary. This is absurd on some level. And I think it speaks volumes about how Trump views these meetings. He doesn't view them in the same way that the diplomatic community views them. There are people at the State Department with decades of diplomatic experience and deep knowledge in Russia, in Ukraine, and how to do this back and forth. Do you know where those people are? They're out of work because he fired all of them. The purge that went on at State is unbelievable. And Marco Rubio is like a a little chess piece that he keeps on a shelf. Marco Rubio is completely defanged. So he's the Secretary of State. He has nothing to do with this. So the army of knowledgeable people briefing the president and actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting before the president gets to a summit, they're all gone. So typically before a summit, you have diplomatic back and forth to the point that they've already agreed on certain things. And then you have the summit with the leaders like Putin and Trump in this case. And they have an announcement to make. There's a quality of it that is sort of pro forma, that is just theatrical. It's perfect for Trump because he's all about the theater and performance. It's not really about any background. He thinks that he can just make some deal across the table knowing nothing about anything. And that's ridiculous. I mean, Putin will eat him for lunch. Putin does the homework. The Russians do the homework. The U.S. has the leverage, militarily, economically, etc. But the reality is Trump doesn't want to be briefed, and he doesn't want anybody who knows any of this stuff anywhere near anything. This is about me and Vladimir Putin, and I'll tell you when we're done. So none of the usual dance that's done before a diplomatic meeting of this sort, a summit meeting, two superpower leaders meeting over a contested area of the world that is desperately valuable to Europe, the unmitigated aggression of Vladimir Putin as he moved into Ukraine, and then you meet with him to carve up Ukraine. I don't think it's going to wash. Zelensky's out of the mix, as I said. It's just the two of them. And Zelensky had a call with Trump, and Zelensky said, Zelensky was quite lovely, actually. He said, President Trump has told me he will let me know exactly what is discussed with Vladimir Putin and how it affects Ukraine and the war. The Europeans are saying, got to get a ceasefire first. Before anything happens, we need a ceasefire. Now, again, these are things that would generally be agreed upon through diplomatic means and diplomatic meetings before the summit. That's not the way it's working here. It's very possible that Trump is going to come up empty-handed on this because this is sort of he's gotten rid of all the preliminaries. The preliminaries are important, and he's gotten rid of them. He wants to get right to the announcement. He's all about the announcement. So I thought there was some decent analysis today that I saw from the former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy, Richard Stengel. Yeah, play a little bit of this, if you would, please, Howard. I want people to hear this. I think this is a decent little reducto on things.
And I mean, I don't mean to pour water on it or be a traditionalist, but usually for an American president, a summit meeting is the reward for the other guy. Right. You've done all of these negotiations for weeks and months. You finally agreed to the things we want. I'll give you a summit now. So already Putin has won a prize. Russian presidents always want to be perceived on the world stage as equals of American presidents, and Trump is granting that. He's inviting a war criminal to American territory. Again, Putin has already won. And I've also interviewed Putin. I spent 3 hours with Putin in 2006. He knows every single detail about every single thing he talks about. He's completely and utterly prepared. Donald Trump, no one's ever said he's prepared. And so the fact that they're in there by themselves, they're negotiating without anything predetermined, I think gives Putin the advantage, not Trump.
And Trump has said that he's going to be able to figure out in the first few seconds if a deal potentially can be made. You're implying that actually Putin's in the driver's seat.
I do think so. I mean, the thing about Donald Trump is he thinks that personal relations trump the interests of countries. Countries have interests. Putin has had the same goal for Russia for the last 35 years. He's unmoving. You can read it 1,000 different times, but Trump hasn't. He thinks he's going to have some kind of interaction and that's going to show him something. I think that's a mythology.
Wonderful. See.
So that's, I think that really does state it bluntly, a little bit of what we've talked about on the show through the many days. We talked about the fact that it's already a Putin win. And there you heard from Richard Stengel the fact that there are other things baked into this that just really don't make this anything more than sort of a glorified photo op, I'd suggest. And this is kind of the theater of the stuff Trump likes to do. And there, the sad part is there's a real crisis here. And the Europeans understand that. The Europeans have gotten in touch with Trump, and they've said, and they're saying that they are trying and have established with Donald Trump a playbook, kind of a strategy for what should happen. But the reality is, I think Trump he just marches to the beat of his own drummer, and his own drummer is off beat. So I don't know. I'm not super optimistic about this.
He was asked today at that, I think it was at the Social Security thing, but perhaps it was before. He was asked whether he would give Putin access to rare earth minerals to incentivize him to end this war. And he didn't answer. He just went on to talk about, the meeting is going to be great, and this is going to be great, and we're going to have a second meeting, and it's going to be even better, and we're going to bring the European leaders and Zelensky to the second meeting. So one wonders what he'll give away, what Putin will be able to extract from Trump as, in one of these things, because, he's very outmatched, Trump, in this regard.
Yeah. And, Michael Wolff, who I think is actually a pretty good mind on much of this stuff, and we may try to get him on the show. And there's some reasons I wouldn't want him on the show, but all right. But anyway, point is, I do think he has some good takes. Michael Wolff is saying that, and this is, all roads on some level do lead back to this. As I was saying to Kim the other day, his flex on D.C., moving the National Guard in, extending his control over D.C., it's a real thing that he's doing. It's a real thing he wants to do, but it also serves the purpose of distracting from Epstein. The fact that it distracts is, to me, added value for him. It's not the reason he did it, but it's the added value. And indeed, Michael Wolff is saying he has been making Trump ceaseless phone calls to allies saying he needs a, quote, big thing to divert attention from Epstein. And Wolff thinks that he may have found a bit of that with this summit meeting with Putin. Let me go back a week or so, or 10 days, Wolff said, when Trump started to say to everyone who would listen, and everyone listens to Trump, to staffers and on the phone calls, the relentless phone calls that he's constantly making, Wolff was saying, he said, Trump did, I need a big thing. I need a big thing. What's the big thing? Wolff asked. Everyone understood that this was code for, I need a distraction from Epstein. Mm-hmm. What's the thing that will move us beyond Epstein? So deploying troops to Washington, D.C., it works maybe a little bit. And then zeroing in on mayoral candidate Mamdani in New York. Wolff suggested that. And then the summit. And you leave Zelensky out, and Wolff is saying and predicting, and he knows Trump and the Trump dance pretty well. Wolff is predicting that at the end of this all, the U.S. will pull out of involvement in Ukraine and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. He's going to sacrifice Ukraine for Epstein, Wolff said. Essentially, this is, in his mind, a trade. It is the MAGA people who have pressed this Epstein issue constantly. They're the threat. And he's suggesting the Epstein drumbeat is real, Wolff is saying. It is unceasing, and it is threatening, most of all, to Donald Trump. So, in response to Michael Wolff, Stephen Chung, who is the attack dog for the president, responded. His official title is not attack dog, it's spokesperson. He responded, Michael Wolff is a lying sack of shit. All right, so that's the view, but I think the view from Wolff is defensible. What about this video on Trump giving Putin the Donbass region? Do you see that, Albert, in the rundown? Is that something we can get to easily?
Yes. Let me just pull it.
This is the last thing on this, and then I'll move to D.C. and some of what's going on there. We'll talk to David Katz about D.C. as well. The former federal prosecutor should be here in hour 2. Mm-hmm. But I did want to just round this off because this is the disputed region. at least one of them. There's also the Crimea, or you can just call it Crimea.
This was the video that we just played earlier.
Oh, it is. It's the same one. Okay, so that's so the idea is that at the end of this Trump will have made considerable concessions to Vladimir Putin. We will see. So
he was asked if, I guess he was told by Fox Radio when he was doing an interview, that there's a joint press event that the White House and the Kremlin have announced after this summit tomorrow. And Trump said if things go well, he'll hold one. But if things don't go well, he's just going to hold a solo press conference and get out of there.
Yeah. It's funny. He's already accounting for the fact that things may not go well.
Yeah.
This is the conflict that he said he would stop on day one, maybe not even have to be president. Before I even get sworn in, I can stop this. I mean, it is just the stuff that he spins, and he says it enough. And obviously he pulled one over on enough Americans that, he was able to win an election. So
there's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
Yeah. Ain't it true? You may want to run with those numbers a little bit. Kim, I wanted to get to what's happening in the District of Columbia. It continues to be a place where Trump is taking over the DC police, also talking about targeting other cities with the same kind of move. We'll talk to David Katz about this. But he is taking credit for dozens of arrests already as he's fighting crime on the streets.
Here's the thing about that is, now it becomes one of these stories, or this is hard. I used to trust information coming out of the White House. If they said, 45 arrests were made and it was for these particular reasons, I would have no reason to doubt it and report it as if, the White House says this and here's what it is. Now the White House says this information, and I have a big question mark as to whether or not any of it is accurate. They are saying 45 arrests were made overnight, that multiple people in that 45, at least 19, were undocumented folks that were here. And then there were 16 that were violent criminals, and there was child sex stuff that was involved, and there was a big weaponry that was involved in being seized. Whatever. I don't know.
Well, I would just say, even if I accept all of those numbers as real, okay, I first of all don't think the problem in Washington, D.C. has anything to do with illegal immigration. Nothing to do with it. I also think that street crime in Washington, which is really the thing that supposedly animated all of this, it's not helped by wrapping up some weapons dealer or illegal weapons. I mean, you can say, well, Mark, you don't understand. There are illegal weapons underpinning all of these various things, these street crime. Well, not really. I mean, the 15-year-old that beat up, Big Balls or whatever his name was, and, was referenced in the,
sure.
He's a 15-year-old guy. It was not about, in my judgment, it's about the real problems of Washington. And they are real. So you could say, like in many major cities, there's a problem with crime. There's an epidemic of crime. There's an epidemic of youth. Truancy is a huge issue in Washington. They have the truancy rates that compete with pretty much every place in America. So many kids not going to school. And so the issues that underpin all of this, I think, have nothing to do with what you've just described. I guess that's what I'm getting at. And then the last thing I'll say is, you bring in the National Guard, they can't arrest anybody, can they? I don't think they have the power to arrest anybody. We'll ask David Katz. So when you're talking about all these arrests, so all they need is Pam Bondi on the case with the acting police chief now, because she's not really running the police chief in Washington, D.C., is sort of ceded control to Pam Bondi. I don't know what's going on. But Donald Trump is saying that he is going to ask Congress for a long-term control of Washington, D.C. that would extend well beyond just another 30 days. And he expects other Democratic-led cities to change their laws in response to his deployment of National Guard troops and federal agents into the Capitol. He's saying, again, he's using this never-before-used clause of the law that sets out the district's governance structure so he can take temporary control, but he's not going to find that law in other cities. That's why I want to talk to David Katz about it.
He's also saying he gets the 30-day temporary control, and then Congress has to approve an extension. And he's already saying he wants to extend this time frame. But yesterday, when he gave his whole Kennedy Center honoree speech, where he's going to be the MC of the show, he also said that it kind of alluded to the fact that he'd go around Congress, that he would find a way to declare some kind of national emergency and continue with or without them.
Just what Kim's saying, and she practically quoted him. He said, if it's a national emergency, we can do it without Congress. That's a direct quote. So you declare a national emergency, you do it without Congress. This is the same way they can undermine a vote. This is the same way they can delay a vote. You're going to see a manipulation of things that you've taken for granted in America. You're going to see that on a level you never dreamt was possible. These are people who are committed to an ideal, and the ends justify the means. And the means involve going around Congress, any kind of law and representation to get what they want. Now, again, I'm going to say this weird thing, which is D.C. does have a crime problem like a lot of major cities. So they're probably Washingtonians who go, bring it on, brother. Go ahead. Put the National Guard up and down 14th Street. Put it down on, P Street, Q Street. Go ahead. Those areas that have been affected by crime may welcome the presence of troops or additional cops. But they're not looking for ICE agents. They're not looking for people to arrest immigrants who are working on a job site. They're looking for street crime to be eliminated or certainly reduced in the Washington area. There's going to be huge pushback on this in Congress when Congress comes back in. Already Schumer's talking about that. But federal agents in the crime crackdown have set up checkpoints in the nightlife area of Washington. In fact, increased law enforcement presence drawing a crowd of protesters to this area where they set up a checkpoint.
Is this the checkpoint where you show me your papers?
Steps away from a YMCA, a popular bakery, and a local pharmacy, a group of law enforcement officers across several agencies turned a busy intersection in a mixed residential commercial area of Washington into a police checkpoint. Uniformed officers with the Metropolitan Police Department stood alongside Homeland Security investigations personnel and several plainclothes agents at the checkpoint in the U Street corridor at one of the first checkpoints set up since Trump temporarily put D.C. under federal control and deployed the National Guard. More than 100 protesters soon gathered in the same area, heckling law enforcement and chanting, "Get off our streets," as agents stopped cars and flagged some vehicles for additional inspection. I mean, this is the thing. You have to, if you're one of those officers, you have to flag cars for additional inspection. You're, I think, questioning people who probably don't deserve to be questioned. You have to, if you will, justify your existence. You don't want to feel like you're just a chess piece. You don't want to feel like you're just part of the theater, but you are. Now, I'll also say this to be fair. Just the presence of these people, National Guardsmen, additional police officers from ATF and all of these other agencies that I've mentioned, DEA, et cetera, it does have an effect of chilling out street crime. But when you're stopping vehicles in downtown Washington, Washington's already hard enough to get around. I mean, really, man? What are you finding and what are you looking for in those vehicles? It's a shakedown. It's an absolute shakedown. In other words, it doesn't even serve the express purpose for all of this. It's absolutely absurd to have a checkpoint. What are you looking for? You're looking for illegal weapons? That's the only, really? Car to car? This isn't the border. It's absolute craziness. And it just speaks to how bankrupt of any real strategy there is. I talked about the truancy rates. I talked about the things that affect life in Washington. It does suck. The public schools have sucked forever. I grew up in Washington. I went to a private school. My parents had to bust their ass to pay for it. And that's the only option. There are kids coming out of the DC public schools who are doing well, who can perform scholastically, but man, they have to really leap a lot of obstacles to get it done. These are the things that afflict Washington. And so I'd like to see more cops. You know me. I like to see cops. I got no problem with cops in a lot of places. I just don't want to see them stopping cars. I don't want to see them stopping people on the street. Papers, please, as Kim says. I don't want to see that. A police presence does help. But cops that shake you down, that just creates an increasing image of cops as shakedown artists, as people are going to hassle you. Oh my God, there's a cop on my block. When I see a police car come up my block, I go, great, love that the cops are here. Mm-hmm. When others see the cops come up their street in urban areas, et cetera, where they have a history of a bad relationship with cops, they go, oh my God, here the cops come to shake us down. It's bad for cops. It's bad for the National Guard. I wish there was a real strategy in place, but that strategy shouldn't include these ridiculous checkpoints. They're looking for the Epstein file, says Tammy. Of course.
They're going car to car.
We're going car to car looking for the Epstein files. That is the comment of the day. Thank you very, very much. Yeah. So that's a little bit of what's happening in Washington, D.C. So.
The Mark Thompson Show.
You'll watch the chat for me. Tell me if there's something I need to know. I do want to and did intend to before my lawyer gets here, David Katz, the brilliant former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney in Southern California. I still felt like I had a couple of stories that I wanted to share with you. Mm-hmm. And I feel these stories do fall into this world of the law. And we have a segment on this show on which we can do this. But I'm worried, is Albert left now? Oh, he's back. Okay, good. Now, Albert, you know what I'm talking about when I say we have a segment on the show.
Albert, thank you.
Law and disorder, Mark.
Yeah, it's just so hard to do things smoothly because I never know if people are here, if they stepped out to walk the dog, whatever. Albert, I mean, you keep me on my toes,
Albert, thank
I'm just
you.
saying, that's all. So you are here and you know what I'm talking about. Is that right, sir? Is that your
That's
testimony?
correct, and I'm ready.
Okay. My friends, this is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
A Texas judge is ordering Alex Jones's broadcast and merchandising business InfoWars to be sold to pay Sandy Hook families a token of the $1.5 billion that he owes them.
Yay.
He owes them that for that defamation suit that he was found guilty in. The order was signed yesterday by a state judge. It comes out a year after the InfoWars parent company was released from federal bankruptcy protection, allowing Sandy Hook families to go after its assets in the state courts.
Here's
the receiver, sorry?
Who's going to buy InfoWars?
It was already, there were several different, I think, concerns trying to get it.
Really? Okay.
And in fact, remember I thought they put together a consortium where the Sandy Hook families were going to buy it. I mean, or some, you can check this, Albert, maybe you can check this.
Google it.
They really were looking at ways in which they could take it over or some adjacent organization could take it over. I get what you're saying. It's a toxic brand.
Right.
But I think the idea was to unplug Alex Jones. And now, again, the judge saying, quote, the receiver is appointed with authority to take possession of all the turnover property, sell the turnover property, and pay the proceeds to Sandy Hook families to the extent required to satisfy the judgment. This is Judge Maya Guerra Gamble in the Travis County District Court in Texas.
I think the Onion tried to buy InfoWars at some point too.
Thank you. That's it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's it. That was it. And they were serious about it. Yeah.
And they were taken to court, and I guess they were not allowed to buy the InfoWars.
I see. That's what happened.
Right?
Yeah. Jones's personal bankruptcy case is remaining active in federal court, where a judge has signed orders that authorize the sale of Jones's personal property and real estate. That's to satisfy creditors. Jones called the 2012 massacre of 26 first graders and educators at Sandy Hook Elementary School, quote, staged, synthetic, manufactured, a giant hoax, and completely fake with actors. He should burn in whatever version of hell there might be on this earth. Just unbelievable.
Apparently, because of this ruling, it opens the door for the Onion to revive its bid to buy InfoWars. So maybe they'll end up with it after all.
Love it. Love hearing that. Mexico did transfer those 26 cartel figures wanted by U.S. authorities. This is a deal with the Trump administration. They are a milestone, these transfers, for this Trump administration. They've made dismantling dangerous drug cartels a key Justice Department priority, as you know. And the transfers are and have gone on. All 26 men have played a role in bringing violence and drugs to American shores, and under this Department of Justice, they will face severe consequences for their crimes against this country. Those are the words of your Attorney General, Pam Bondi. The Postal Service worker who flaunted stacks of cash on social media admits to stealing that cash from the mail.
Oh,
of course.
Nice.
Yeah. The woman who, sorry?
The post office worker stole from the mail?
Yeah, she's a woman. She flaunted luxury goods and wads of cash on social media. She's going to be sentenced to federal prison for stealing credit cards and cashing other people's checks to fund her lavish lifestyle. Mary Ann McDermott, I mean, to be fair to her, how are you going to fund your lavish lifestyle? You are working for the Postal Service. Yeah, the stuff's right there.
I mean, what does she sit at the mailbox going, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me?
You, two for me.
Yeah.
Right. She's in Carson, California. She admits to conspiring to commit bank fraud while working at a U.S. Postal Service in Torrance.
Wow.
The whole thing happened over a 3-year period. Checks, debit and credit cards, personal identifying information, all jacked, and then activating the stolen cards to make luxury purchases and take international trips to tropical locales. She sold some of the stolen cards to co-conspirators and arranged for others to cash stolen checks using counterfeit IDs. She was hard at work making her scam work, and it worked for a while, but they finally got her. Thieves have stolen millions in a string of armored car heists in the Philadelphia area. Armored thieves accused of stealing an estimated $700,000 from a Brinks driver less than 2 months after $2 million was stolen from another armored vehicle.
This is a classic. I mean, going after a Brinks truck? Come on.
It's so old school.
Yeah.
One of the suspects is Trayveen Jackson, 31, a former employee of Brinks.
It was an inside job, Mark.
It's always an inside job, you know, where we work for Brinks.
Baby girl, don't even play.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. They had suspects armed with AR-15 style rifles. They're accused of stealing more than $2 million from a Brinks driver at a Philadelphia Home Depot in June. And again, this is sort of an ongoing investigation, but they are dealing with what may be several people associated with this string of armored car robberies. Uber got reports of sexual misconduct every 8 minutes for 5 years, according to records.
Wow.
They reported sexual assault to Uber, all these people who were alleged victims of sexual assault, every 8 minutes between 2017 and 2022, according to sealed court records that the New York Times got access to. This is far higher, as you might expect, than the company had previously disclosed. Uber had promoted itself as one of the safest transportation options for you, publishing safety reports, marketing campaigns emphasizing that 99.9% of U.S. trips occur without incident. But these newly unsealed records, part of a large-scale litigation against Uber, show that Uber logged 400,181 reports of sexual assault or misconduct in that 5-year span they're talking about. Uber had released safety reports saying that there were only 12,500 accounts of serious sexual assault for that same period. My friends, reality comes and slaps you in the face once in a while, and so it is for Uber. That is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey,
Let's be careful out there. The Mark Thompson Show.
Thanks to everybody who joins our show and shares our show. We're a live show on for 2 hours. Usually we go a little over 2 hours every Monday through Friday. I'm Mark. That's Kim. Albert is a part of things. And on Thursdays, it's a special gift to be able to talk to this next guy. He is one of the great legal analysts in the English-speaking world on broadcast media across England. Seen him on BBC. You've heard him on radio there in London. You see him on News Nation regularly. He's a political analyst as well as a legal analyst, and also across the U.S. and New Zealand, Australia. So when it comes to breaking down the law and explaining some of the complexities associated with the many legal challenges going on right now, I think he's without peer. He's the great David Katz, everyone.
Hi, great to be with you.
Good to see you, David Katz. And I'm first wanting to start with what's going on in Washington. So you have the president, I think fairly, David Katz, and you worked in Washington for the Justice Department. You're a former federal prosecutor. I understand you're a defense attorney now. But Washington did have problems with crime, does have problems with crime. All right. It's not a fantasy that Trump has made up. I think it's my personal view that, it's not like the military sort of is a hammer. Everything else looks like a nail. Like you just put the military anywhere or military related, and you can solve the problem. So when he looks at the problems of D.C., the graffiti, the street crime, et cetera, somehow he feels a federal takeover is appropriate. Can you tell me about the legal way in which he's taken over Washington, D.C., and his administration has taken over D.C., Pam Bondi now running the police department, and how that 30 days that is given to them as a legal remedy for the situation can be extended, and how long they might actually be able to extend it legally?
Well, Mark, if you don't mind a little preamble, because you mentioned about my living and working in Washington, D.C., and I know that you're from there. I was there in 1980 in the Carter Department of Justice, including in the office of the Solicitor General, which is on Northwest Washington. And then part of the job of a Solicitor General is to argue in front of the Supreme Court, which is right by the Capitol. And I think it's technically in Southeast, but it's in that very nice complex, very middle-class area right around the Capitol. And then after that, I worked for a federal judge as his law clerk. That was, again, in very much the same area. If people know Washington, it's about 3 or 4 blocks from the Department of Justice. It's just by where the Canadian Embassy is. That's sort of a landmark that people know. And then I worked for about 2 years at what was then the largest law firm in town, which was over by New Hampshire Avenue, which is in the very nice part of Northwest. The point I'm trying to say is that in all that time, I was never a victim of a crime. I never had any contact with the police as a victim, but I also stayed in Northwest, and it's a very balkanized area. I don't know if I've ever been to Anacostia, the areas that aren't right by the Capitol in Southeast or outside of the Northwest area, which is the famously white, it's the famously middle class, it's the famously area where government workers work if they don't live out in Maryland, in, let's say, Bethesda or someplace like that, or if they don't live down in Virginia, because there's a part of Virginia which is very close, and that's where the Pentagon is. That's where the Arlington and Alexandria are. I say all of that because this area of Washington, D.C., which is the high crime area, and then, of course, there are crimes that occur in Northwest in the nice part of town, and they're usually a lot more controversial than the crime that really goes on in what Trump calls the slums. He's going to clear out the slums. Thousands of years we've had slums, but Trump is going to come along. He's going to clear out the slums. That's obviously not something that's going to happen. So my point is that a lot of crime is black on black. A lot of crime is in the very poor area of Washington, D.C. Trump and most of the Republicans have shown no interest in really curbing that or doing things that will help with the social causes, right? The root causes of crime, having better education and so forth. So now, on the basis of a totally flim-flam and flimsy incident, one of Trump's people was running around, I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Good things tend not to happen when you're running around at 3 o'clock in the morning. And apparently they were going to try to carjack him or something. Nobody, as I understand it, was really hurt in this instance. So if you're going to base sending the National Guard and troops into Washington, D.C. based on this as an emergency, you can always concoct an emergency. This was even further from an emergency, Mark, from what we had in L.A. This was totally concocted and made up. And of course, part of it's performative because it's to show people I can go into any city in America anytime I want to. And you got to get normalized to the idea that on absolute pretext, I can go into any city, and I went into Washington. Now, when you get into the legalities of it, it is easier to go into Washington, D.C. because there is no governor. It's not a state. He had to defy our governor, get at odds with our governor and our mayor. There is a mayor in Washington, D.C., but there's no governor in Washington, D.C., which under the law makes it easier for him to just deploy and command federal troops in Washington, D.C. I think ultimately it will be found to be illegal if he leaves them there for more than 30 days. And we could talk about what little I think they can actually accomplish except to show off and perform and do performative stuff in those 30 days. But I think after 30 days, unless he gets Congress on board and he tries to use emergency powers to keep them there more than 30 days, and that's 27 days from now, they have to leave. I think that Congress will not approve it, and I think he'll have trouble in the courts if he leaves them more than 27 days more.
He's talking about going around Congress. He mentioned this yesterday as he was sort of riffing about the Kennedy Center honors, and then he went on, with it was probably like a 40-minute run with discussions of what was going on in Washington, and he made up a number of things that, just didn't even pass the smell test at all. But one of the things he had said, and did say quite distinctly, was if we have to work around Congress, we will.
Yeah, well, that's just not correct. The courts will strike him down on that. He's not a king. He's not a dictator. There's a Home Rule Act, and it's in that Home Rule Act that if the president declares an emergency, he can send troops in for 30 days. Now, you could even challenge it during those 30 days, arguing that emergency must mean something. That same issue has come up in front of the district judge out here in California who's trying the case about the troops that he sent into LA, where that judge asked, is that all it is? If you say it's an emergency, it's an emergency? There's no other evidence before me except the president told you it's an emergency. That's enough to declare an emergency? I don't think any court should declare that it's an emergency because the president says so. There has to be some evidence. So I think if he declares an emergency and tries to keep them there without Congress approving it for more than 27 days more, I think the courts will strike that down, even these courts. And I think that, but I say even these courts, there are great judges in Washington, D.C., but it would go up to the U.S. Supreme Court. That's what I mean when they say those courts,
sure.
The 6 of the 9.
Right, the concierge court that he has waiting for him with the Supremes. This from Inlays, Trump just wants America used to the military in the streets. That's all. So he can call them during the 2026 election and interfere with voting machines, et cetera. I mean, that's skipping ahead in the movie, but that is kind of what you're saying, minus the election part. You didn't say that yet, but maybe that was implied. You were saying it's getting easier and easier then for this president to sort of make that flex happen as Americans get more accustomed to seeing this move where he declares an emergency and he'll impose tariffs. He declares an emergency and then he brings troops to the streets. This emergency declaration gets to be the squishy area, and it's been, I suppose it's been invoked so rarely that we don't really have a frame of reference for it.
I agree with your writer. I think the purpose of this is to normalize the reaction of the American people. So when troops are called into things like the elections, when they were called into LA, where that was absolutely not an emergency, and where they're called into Washington, where it's not an emergency. And yes, they'll be called in during elections to try to monkey around with the 2026 election. And people will have 2 reactions. They used to have 2 reactions. I can't believe the troops are being called out at all. Well, they wanted that reaction because they will have been a little bit more used to that, as your writer says. I think they'll still have the reaction that you better not monkey with the elections. There'll be a lot of observers. Remember, the states pretty much handle the elections. And, the funny thing about it, we saw this in LA. We're going to see this in Washington. We're going to see this when they stand around during the elections. They're fantastic at what they're trained to do, the American military. They're not trained to do any of those things. So they really are just standing around. There's a report that they were in a nice dining area in Washington, D.C. for them, and all they did was freak out the crowd. They kind of ambled around. It was just totally disruptive, whether they meant to or not. They were such a spectacle, and they weren't doing anything. And when Trump says, he just gave a speech this morning or this afternoon, I guess, back in Washington, where he said, what have they been trained in? He says, they've been trained in common sense. This is so anti-intellectual, so anti-training, Mark. The idea that you can send anybody with common sense, which means you can send anybody, in your opinion, to do anything without any training whatsoever, without any expertise in the field. And that's them. I mean, there's all kinds of laws on stop and frisk that are complicated, and police officers are trained on them. There's ways of dealing with crowds. There's ways of dealing with traffic control in certain situations. The military is not trained to do any of that, and they're certainly not trained to do anything related to poll watching. I will say this, though, just having a whole bunch of troops near the polls will stop some people, will dissuade some people from voting, and it ain't the Trump voters who will be dissuaded. So in that sense, that may have some real performative impact. Just the fact that they're standing there. They used to have a thing in California. Adam Schiff and I worked on this back in the 80s, where they were down in Orange County, and they would send poll watchers. The Republican Party would send poll watchers. Mind you, Reagan was the president. I think Wilson was the governor. But even so, there's integrity to elections that Wilson and Reagan and the U.S. Attorney's Office defended. And so we did something about the fact that Republican Party operatives were sending people in uniforms to stand by the polls. The point being that anybody who thought there might be any question about their immigration status, and then, of course, the answer to that was, well, if there was a question about their immigration status, they shouldn't be voting. But, Mark, you and I both know that it has a deterrent effect on people who have no immigration problems. They just see all those people in uniform, and they think, you know what, I'll vote next year.
Sure, exactly. It would even have a chilling effect on me. I just don't. I don't know who they're pulling out of line. I don't want to. Please. You know what? It's just easier to stay home. And just on the point of, and I think you make such a good point about the degradation of those who are now being asked to administer to law enforcement on the streets, et cetera. There are trained police officers, and then they're trained military, and the trained military, it's a very different training than the trained police officers, but it's actually worse than that, David. To me, it seems that so many of the thugs associated with, for example, January 6th, they've now found themselves integrated. This is what I said at the time. I said, these are the future brown shirts for Trump. These are the thugs that will make up Trump's militia. Only Trump's militia will be the American militia, as it turns out. He wants that quick strike force. He wants 600 members of the strike force to be able to be deployed within an hour. I mean, I'm very much convinced that these Trump loyalists, many of whom were involved in J6, they're going to be part of this. And then you end up with the poaching of police departments by ICE. But back to my J6 thing, I just wanted to underscore the fact that this guy, Jared Wise, he was arrested on January 6th. He called for police officers to be killed on January 6th. I've got his quote somewhere. He admitted it in court. He acknowledged that he yelled, kill him, as officers were being attacked. And he was pardoned by the Trump administration. And now he is a senior advisor at the Department of Justice. This is a guy who was calling for the killing of police officers on January 6th. So all I'm trying to say, to your point, is this degradation of training, of the degrading of so much that is associated with law enforcement and with the law in general. It's alarming to me as an American.
Well, Mark, you have a totally shameless group in there. Normally, we thought that our politicians could at least be shamed into not doing things where every sensible, right-thinking person would say, well, that's shameful. You're a total hypocrite. You said the exact same opposite when the shoe was on the other foot, and that people would care about not just any old public opinion, but learned, informed public opinion. This crowd does not. So you have Janine Pirro, right, stand there and say, if you spit, we hit. Now, the January 6 marauders, 1,500 of them, did a whole lot more than spit, right? And the idea that if all you do is spit, you get hit, you get roughed up, you get beaten up, That's so unbelievable. And yet they were all this crowd was so charitable to the January 6th people who did a lot more than spit. They hit police officers. A few police officers died on account of that. They threatened all those legislators. They were all shaking in their boots. All the Republicans who have very short memories, they were all shaking in their boots. That senator from Missouri, Hawley, he's such a shameless character. With all the statements that he made and waving to the marauders, right, and all that. He ran like a punk. They have a photo of him running like a punk to get out of there. And all of them who were scared to death of the rioters, that luckily none of them were hurt, except obviously the trauma of it. And now they've all forgotten about that, and now they're all on the if you spit, we hit, but no recriminations, no record. And yes, I think they've actually made it so that those people can accept that $50,000 reward, Mark, and not be brown shirts. I don't think the brown shirts were the official police. Anyway, there was a group that was not the official police.
No, you're absolutely. That was my point. That it's worse than brown shirts. They become the American militia. Yeah,
they'll be the official police.
Yes,
people who were pardoned after beating cops, hitting them with sticks, breaking into the Capitol. Yes, they'll be your neighborhood police officer, or more likely your neighborhood ICE agent. They've spent billions of dollars, Mark. They've bankrupted all these funds. They've depleted all the resources for criminal defense lawyers appointed by the court. And because we care about our clients, we soldier on.
Right.
But they didn't spend any money on all sorts of things like that. And we're not, of course, the hardest hit. The hardest hit is the aid, the AID, and the more stories that you hear about that and all the awful things that have been defunded.
Well, yeah, we talked about that yesterday and the ending, essentially, of American soft power. I just want to double back and just underscore what David is saying. The $50,000 that he's talking about is the bonus. It's a signing bonus offered by ICE, particularly to other law enforcement officers who come over to join ICE, but they are doing everything and throwing every incentive to so many Americans to become part of this ICE fighting force. It's really
the only irony is that a lot of them had those court-appointed attorneys that I was talking about, and their bills are not getting paid. So the $50,000 is going to the defendant who was convicted, but his court-appointed or her court-appointed lawyer is not getting paid because they put all of the money under the ICE shell and under the other things there. So you open that, there's no money for anything of our social needs.
I want to pivot off of Washington and the January 6th folks who now occupy the Justice Department to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court...
Agent Jones to you. That's not Marauder or defendant. That's Special Agent Jones of the ICI to you.
That's right. I mean, we all have to stand up and salute these guys now.
You got it.
It's been 10 years since the Supreme Court ruled that same-sex couples nationwide can marry. And now, I guess that is going to be questioned at the Supreme Court level. It may or may not be taken up by the court, as I'm reading, David. Maybe you can put this in some kind of framework for us.
Well, this may be the revenge of the heterosexually married Clarence Thomas, who never liked the Obergefell decision. It was close. It needed Justice Kennedy, who's not on the court anymore. It's just horrible to think that they could marshal 5 votes. But as I said the other day, Supreme Court's not right because they're right. They're right because 5 people voted that way. And they've seen exactly that way now. Another branch of government, just ones that run around with black robes on the U.S. Supreme Court. And they may, for all I know, marshal 5 votes. RBG is not there anymore. And they've used the language to try to get review. Let me just say this, Mark. They've used the language to try to get review that it's egregiously wrong. That was the expression that Alito used in the Dobbs case to overturn the longtime precedent of Roe v. Wade. They said this one is egregiously wrong. And based on Dobbs, if they think something's egregiously wrong, suddenly there's not precedent anymore. There's just the will of the 5 of them to do whatever the hell they want.
That's, I guess, what I was kind of getting at with my question. There's no legal basis, even as this court overturned women's reproductive rights. They invoked some 1600 relative judgment from a time that, you know, where they were bleeding people to cure them type thing, sort of an ancient court judgment back when they believed in witches or whatever it might be. I mean, and that was public policy. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, as they concoct their own arguments, you really stated so well, because they don't really refer to the law. They didn't refer to the law so well, I don't think, maybe you can explain it, in overturning women's reproductive rights. And it sounds like what's happening here is they're not going to refer to the law in their judgment to reverse gay marriage. It's just stuff that they concoct in the back room and agree it just seems wrong to them.
Well, most experts think that they will not go that far to actually reverse it. You know, there's a lot of ways that they could avoid it, find that no one has standing, you know, that sort of thing. But there's the plaintiff in this case is the lady who she was the clerk, if you remember her, and she refused to certify gay marriages someplace, Kentucky or wherever.
Yeah.
She ended up getting held in contempt because she refused to follow Obergefell. She, I think, served about 6 days in jail for criminal contempt, or maybe civil, until she would do what she was ordered to do. And she's preserved her case all the way since then, Mark. The case has kicked around. She's fighting that contempt citation, and she's asked for cert in the Supreme Court. And she says there's a couple of things wrong with her contempt. You know, this procedure wasn't followed, that wasn't done. And oh, by the way, the whole basis of it, Obergefell, was egregiously wrongly decided. It has to be reversed. So most people don't think it's going to happen, but you know, the reality is that five people around there, you know, five people that have been elevated through the political process to the U.S. Supreme Court, 5 of them can do just about whatever the hell they want. And if people don't like it, they can vote for a president who will appoint different Supreme Court justices when they get the opportunity, or will appoint Supreme Court justices to replace them when given the opportunity, or as they had the opportunity under Biden when he had both houses of Congress, expand the number of justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. Biden was such an institutionalist, he never took it seriously. He had a commission, they were all from fancy universities, they all sat around and they all did nothing. And they never
had to expand it. But David, just on that, you would have needed Congress's approval to expand the court, wouldn't you have?
But only by, only by 51 votes, and they had 51 votes. They would have had to get Manchin and the other lady. I wish somebody would follow what Manchin and that other lady from Arizona are doing today. I sure hope it doesn't have anything to do with how they cast their votes when they didn't cast them for the Democrats.
No, Manchin's businesses, as you know, through coal and through pharma. His daughter is the CEO of a major pharmaceutical company. All of that. It's a.
Did he vote in any way that helped the people and that didn't help big coal? Someone should go back and research it.
Well, no. I mean, the answer is no. I mean, the answer is they had to throw him some bones to get his vote, right? And by the way, I'm seeing in the chat, you know, that lady who you talked about in Kentucky. If she's still around, David's saying not only is she still around, she's the plaintiff. She's the one who is trying to get this case heard by the Supreme Court. So she's very much around. She's that Kentucky clerk. Her name is Kim Davis.
Kim Davis. And if she's right, you see, Mark, if she's right that Obergefell was wrongly decided, then the whole basis for her contempt that she should have allowed those same-sex marriages would fall out, because there would be no right to same-sex marriage. There'd be no basis for the order that she allow a same-sex marriage. But of course, that's the whole idea of not going that far. That used to be conservative with a small c, judicial decision-making. Decide a case on the narrowest basis that you have to. Don't go deciding that constitutional rights have changed. Don't go overruling precedent. By now, the precedent is, what, 15 years old? And of course, talk about settled expectations. And on top of that, if I can just editorialize and talk about something that has no problem at all. People are not up in arms about same-sex marriages. They go to same-sex marriages like other marriages. They're so happy for the people that they found someone in life that they want to marry. I mean, this is like not even controversial. I think even Trump has shied away from this one. You know, the Secretary of Treasury, I believe, is openly gay. And that's probably the first that anybody's heard about it. And who cares, right? And if he's married to somebody, mazel tov, more power to him. And who the hell wouldn't go to the wedding? So this whole same-sex, there's some controversy about trans. There just is, whether it should be as big an issue or not. That's a huge thing. Why is it such a big issue? Is it an attack issue by the Republicans? I get all that. But same-sex marriage, I mean, this is something that doesn't need any curing whatsoever.
So I want to move to something else that is happening in the law and in courtrooms, and it's about voting rights. And I guess this is the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, and yet
we only live to 60.
Right. It may not make it. The ability of Americans to vote freely, to vote fairly, for their vote to be counted in a free and fair way, that has been always under fire. There's prejudice associated with. There's voter suppression on levels that we've discussed at length. We've had Greg Palast on the show. We've had other election experts on the show. There are all kinds of ways to gerrymander and to play down the people's voice. I mean, that really is the way in which your voice is heard in America, is your vote. And yet there are ways to undermine that voice and that vote. So I wonder if you can speak to what is happening with the kind of in court now. The courts have, you would agree, kind of slowly taken pieces out of the Voting Rights Act as they've allowed for redistricting. Many of the states that used to have to submit their maps to the federal government to make sure that they were more or less fair, they've been now allowed to draw those maps quite intensely.
That's Shelby County. That's
Shelby County, exactly. In a racist way, and one would consider a racist way. Please bring us up to speed on this.
Well, the Voting Rights Act, 1965, LBJ, was a reaction to what happened on that bridge, to what happened to Martin Luther King being attacked by police dogs, him and his demonstrators, and the country was really in an outrage, rightly so. And it was being depicted on, that was the days of big media. That was the day when, if you saw it on Walter Cronkite and you saw it on CBS and Walter Cronkite and the nation wanted to do something about it, Republicans voted for it, not just Democrats. The Southern Democrats didn't. A lot of Northern Republicans did vote for the Civil Rights Acts, including the Voting Rights Act. And the idea was that you would have, you would really have the right of minorities to have representation. And of course, that meant that you had to make districts that weren't gerrymandered in such a way, as they were often in the South, that if blacks weren't denied the vote mark because they had to pay a poll tax and because of all the other ways that they harassed blacks when they showed up or tried to vote, that they would have a fair chance at representation. And so there were these maps that were sort of ungerrymandered. They were arranged so that blacks would have a fair chance to vote. Now, this attack on it now is so disingenuous. But what they had was that there were certain states which had historical records. They were almost all, or were all, in the South, that had a historical record under Jim Crow of really not counting the black vote and gerrymandering the black vote. So there were fewer representatives than there ought to be by the percentage of the population that blacks were. And so in order to change the law in any of those 10 or 11 states, there had to be pre-clearance. So you had to go to the Department of Justice if you were the state of Mississippi or the state of Georgia, and you had to say, here's how we're going to redistrict, here's how we're going to have a new map, and please vet it under the Voting Rights Act. Shelby County said no. Roberts, in his famous opinion for a majority, said the South, they're all cool now, man. They're all cool with race now. They get it. They wouldn't discriminate against black people and diminish their vote in the South. You don't need to cure this problem anymore. Well, soon after that decision was made, they re-gerrymandered. They screwed the black people in so many of those states, and that's Shelby County. It's one of like the 4 or 5 outrages, along with Citizens United, that people's heads were spinning before Trump got in there. Their heads were spinning over those kinds of cases, Mark. So now the disingenuous way to do, one way they try to knock out the Voting Rights Act, and we talked about that with the North Dakota and with the tribes up there, is they say there's no private right of action. So right now, Mark, or especially a minority person, a black person can say, look, I want to bring a lawsuit. I want to hire a lawyer. I want to say that my vote is being diluted. Here's how. And they may lose a lot of those cases, but they're allowed to bring them and explain either, and not just one black person, it being a group of black people, it can be a Native American tribe. They have a private right of action. They can go sue. The case that's kicking around right now for next term is, do they have any right to private action? If they don't have a right to private action, that means that those tribes, let's say in North Dakota, have to wait around for the Republican Attorney General of North Dakota to say, hey, our whole Republican state is not treating those Democratic voting Native Americans right. We got to do something about it. And if that Attorney General doesn't get off his or her butt, they're just screwed. Yeah, and I debated a guy from the Heritage Foundation. He may be the next Beauvais. I debated this guy, brilliant fellow, and he said some rights don't have a remedy. So yes, they'll have a right to have themselves counted under the Voting Rights Act, but they'll have no remedy because they can't sue and that's how the Eighth Circuit ruled. The good news, Mark, is that the U.S. Supreme Court stayed the decision of the Eighth Circuit. So it looks like they may retain the private right of action. But when you come to the voting rights, here's the disingenuous thing. They say, you can't consider race. The Voting Rights Act is based around considering race to make sure that Black people and like Native American tribes would have representation. Oh my God, you have like affirmative action now. You have this overt DEI that you're considering race. You're considering that they're Native Americans. Well, if you don't consider that, none of it makes any sense. And you know what these right-wing states say, Mark? They say it's not about race. It's not about you being a Native American. It's like in The Godfather. It's just politics. It's not personal. It's not racial. It's just politics. So they say, like down in Louisiana, where the blacks ought to get 2 seats by their population, and they're only getting 1 of the 6 seats in Congress. They say we didn't give you a second minority seat, not because you're black, but because you're likely to vote Democratic. So hey, and so if the Supreme Court goes along with this, every state they'll sing from the hymnal that it's not about race. It's not about you being a Native American. It's all about politics. And yes, we diminished all of your votes. That's what they'll try to do in Texas. So they'll gerrymander so well that the state can be 50% Hispanic. They'll have 2 Hispanic representatives. The state can be 40% Black. They'll have 2 Black representatives. And of course, what we're going to do, Mark, is that we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fight fire with fire if Texas really goes that far. And you look at, we could create 8, I think, new Democratic seats in California. We could create 3 or 4 new seats in Illinois and probably in New York. And they've forborne. Is that the word? There's been forbearance. There's been forbearance with doing that.
Sure. There's been real restraint because of it unleashes a kind of Pandora's box of redistricting across the country.
The House is 3 votes, Mark. The House is 3 votes. That's why this one district, if you take away Texas redistricting, California redistricting, because we're not going to allow unilateral disarmament when they commit this outrage in Texas. If everybody just lays off, it's 3 votes to win. That 1 vote in Louisiana, put everything else aside, is a third of the way to the Democrats taking back control of Congress. So every seat counts.
Sure. And I've got to move along. I was going to do a follow-up to that, but let me now get you to this foreign aid to which you referred earlier in our conversation. I think it was so critical. It's such a minuscule amount of money that's associated with this relief that's provided to starving communities, famine relief around the country, AIDS relief and HIV relief. And I mean, the amount of disease, of famine that is cured by this minuscule amount of money that the United States of America provides, and it's stamped USA on there. It's such a magnificent way to establish soft power. Even if you don't care about those people, which you should, but I suggest basic humanity requiring, you would think, some way in which you connect with those people. But even if you don't, you can see the way in which this is the soft power of America. This is really what we can do to establish that connection with so many countries. So anyway, now to the legal part. Apparently, the appeals court is letting the Trump administration suspend or end billions in that foreign aid. It extends, beyond just the foreign aid I spoke of. But I wonder if you can explain what's happening here. The Trump administration seems committed to, shutting off the faucet of money associated with foreign aid.
Well, Trump and Doge did so many awful things after January 20th, that it was really hard to keep track of it. And that's been, of course, the game plan of Trump, to do so many despicable things so often on so many different fronts that it's very hard to have the reaction to each one that they deserve. You take this one right here. I think 90% of the American people would be against that. If you explain to them, they'd probably say, we didn't do that. I didn't see it on Fox. It didn't happen. That must be liberal propaganda. And if you, because we are a generous country, we've been built on that. Every political party, we sent missionaries, we sent aid, we helped out all these starving countries. We've done this for 200 years, Mark. We've distinguished ourselves by having this sort of big heart, as part of American exceptionalism, and not really asked, were they doing something back for us? Was it reciprocity? Did somebody say something mean about us? There were starving people there. There were people dying of diseases there. Americans all wanted to do something about it. But like I said, it got lost in the shuffle of all the awful things that they did. And so there hasn't really been the outcry that there ought to be, because this is incredibly unpopular. But what we did was we let all this stuff rot. We've lost millions and millions.
All this food, you mean? All the food that was part
all
of
the food rot. Yes, we've let all the stuff. They tried to, some European countries tried to take it and at least give it out. We gave them a hard time. It just became a bureaucratic disaster all the wrong way. All we did was, as you say, lose our soft power. So this went up to the courts, and someone who was a recipient of the funds said, hey, you didn't have the right to do this. This money was earmarked by Congress. It should have been spent. It should have been spent on me. The person sure seemed to have standing. But it's two judges on the DC circuit. One was appointed by Trump. We've mentioned him already. He's Katz, not me. Katsas. Katz has struck again. He's about the Trumpiest judge in the country. I know he's got a lot of competition, but he's totally Trumpy, and he's totally voting for Trump on this one. So there's apparently some problem with the standing. And then there was another Bush judge, and she had some problem with this too. They didn't have standing. It wasn't the right people before the court. And the dissenting judge said, are you two just completely crazy? This is totally righteous lawsuit. They have standing. This money was earmarked by Congress. There's no impoundment. There's no way to the president not to spend money that's been earmarked by Congress. Congress has the power of the purse. This is a total outrage. What are you people doing? So it got sent back to the district court. It'll kick around. And of course, no one can really save the stuff that rotted and the money. Hopefully at some point, it'll go either to a larger panel of the DC circuit. There are rules that you can have the entire panel. It's called en banc, from French, as a bench, as a court. You can have the whole thing reheard. That may be, by the way, what's going to end up happening with the lawsuit in the Ninth Circuit about LA's being invaded with Trump, invading us with those totally unnecessary troops. It may be the Ninth Circuit as a whole will decide on it. This may be one that the DC Circuit as a whole decides on it. At least for right now, the entire DC Circuit hasn't taken it. If the Ninth Circuit and the DC Circuit as an entire circuit take a case, that's usually a good sign right now, because Trump is winning. Trump's losing almost all of them. But we talk about the ones where Trump wins. This one where Trump wins, it's almost always 2-1. That's what happened when they dissolved the injunction that had been issued by the judge up in San Francisco about LA and the ICE raids down here and all that. That's what's been happening. It's been 2-1, and it's been Trump and a Trump pick and another Republican, or two Trump picks, voting 2-1 on something that really catches the news headlines. And yes, they can certainly stop things or slow them down, but eventually, I think a lot of those cases are going to go en banc, or they're going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And some of the stuff that's going on, these cases, I have a little bit of confidence in the U.S. Supreme Court. You take this one, I think when the U.S. Supreme Court gets this one, it's going to be okay. But again, the horse has already run out of the barn. I get it.
Thank you. I was letting you speak, and it's every cell of my being not to jump in, but I just have to now just say two things. First of all, I've said this to you before and shared with the audience the fact that this is the Trumpian thing. He makes a decision, he does something. It's illegal, okay? He knows it's illegal or doesn't care about the legality. And then, go ahead, take it to court, challenge me, etc. Months go by, and then, as you say, the foodstuffs and the vital relief, $4 billion worth of relief that was to go to these famine-ravaged areas, it's spoiled. It can't happen anyway. It's like, so it's a moot point that the judge ultimately rules in my favor. And then this is played out over many other issues as well. And then this is the one I really want to challenge you on. So you and I have different, and I know I'm the cynical pessimist, whatever. I've been proven right more than, you wondrous optimist. You, though, know your stuff, and I don't. So when it comes to Supreme Court, I'm firing in the dark. I'm saying Supreme Court will back up the president, even on the USAID stuff, on stopping all that USAID aid. I think they are, as you're the one who's convinced me of it. They're just 5 people, and, they can decide on it in any way they want, and they'd rather just decide with the president these days.
Well, Katz is going to stick his neck out as I do. That's one of the many reasons that I don't give you that mealy mouth thing. You can turn the dials all day long, and you're never going to hear anybody predict anything hardly. And I'm going to stick my neck out. If the tariffs thing goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, they're going to say that Trump did not have the power to impose those tariffs the way he did, because there was no true emergency, because we've run a trade deficit for decades. That's nothing new. And we've had fentanyl and other bad drugs coming into the country for decades. That's nothing new. There was no emergency. It is shocking how long these cases kick around, Mark. I think this case from LA, if it goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, because the judge out here, her name is Frimpong, she issued this decision, which was just that ICE has to follow the law, that ICE cannot go pick people because they're brown. I mean, you would think that the administration would say, no fight here, Your Honor. We agree. We're not going to pick anyone just because they're brown. And they say they have articulable suspicions, which seems to be that they're brown and they work near a car wash. It can't be, if they work near a car wash or they work at a construction site and they're brown, that is articulable suspicion. So that,
but they'll concoct articulable suspicion. They'll say that at these car washes, we think that there is drug activity, and they'll concoct it, David. That's what they do.
As presented so far, and it's true, they made a weak record. The government did in the trial court, but on this record right now, the U.S. Supreme Court will say that's just common sense. That one I think will be affirmed, and I think that this one from Judge Breyer, who I think is about to rule that the federal troops that have been sent into LA, the Marines and the National Guard, they can protect they can protect federal buildings. But this idea that everywhere that ICE goes, they can go because they're not protecting a building, but they're protecting a moving object, namely a person who works for ICE, that is a bridge too far. And I think he'll say that they cannot go running all over the place, troops, just because ICE is going there. And I think that one will be affirmed when it gets to the Supreme Court. But Mark, here's my other thing. They teach you in political science classes that the president can't do something that's unconstitutional. And now we have the new corollary, which is that they can't do anything unconstitutional for 2 years. Now they can't do anything unconstitutional for more than 2 years, because it'll take these Republican Trumpy courts, these Republican Trumpy courts, by the time they dissolve the stays that sensible judges are granting, by the time it bats around, you remember the taxes of Trump that had to go to the Supreme Court twice. So all rest assured, favorite optimist, all rest assured, the president cannot violate your constitutional rights for more than about a year or two. Yeah. For a year or two, you are stuck, buddy. Write your editorials, demonstrate in the streets, do everything. This I do mean seriously. Do everything you can. People should think to themselves, I know where these people are going. I know where Trump and his MAGA base are going, and I don't want the country to go that way. What can I do? Besides demonstrating and writing letters, what can I do so things don't go that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always said make noise. I mean, even our show, and shows like it that have much bigger audiences, et cetera. This is the noise. This is the media sphere that does matter. Donald Trump cares about how it's playing in the media. He talks about the media all the time. Media is the enemy because they're not playing him right. Nullifidian says concoct is a ding word. I suppose that all right. But I'll tell you what's a ding word, David Katz.
Forbearance wasn't.
Forbearance certainly was, and corollary is a ding word, which is one that David just used. Yes. So there you go. Those are your ding words for today. I have to wrap up with my my esteemed guest. I wanted to get into one more.
Your listener question?
Let me see if I had, the listener question. Where is that, Kim? The listener question. Here's the Katz mail. Can a Democratic administration, Chad in Reno writes, can a Democratic administration in 2028 go after Trump and his officials for crimes against the Constitution? Or will SCOTUS's decision giving Trump immunity prevent any accountability? Thank you, Chad in Reno. What do you say, David Katz?
I know people are counting the days, but they won't actually arrive until January 2029. But as of January 20th, 2029, the president was given this ridiculously broad immunity in that presidential immunity case. They even got Roberts's vote. And so the president can't be questioned about anything that's done in an official capacity. And there seems to be a very wide berth for official capacity. They said the president apparently can even sell a pardon because giving someone a pardon is something that he does in his official capacity. So, now we have after 2,000 years, we have the money changers back at the temple, right? We have the pardon sellers back in the White House, and Trump has immunity for that. No one else has immunity for that, right? Presidential immunity is just him. Anybody under him can still be prosecuted in a state court as well as a federal court. So lawbreakers in high federal office, beware. Beware.
I mean, Bondi, Patel, all of them. I mean, they could
Trump
all be
could try to give them a pardon. How embarrassing when he gives them a pardon. The pardon would not affect things in state court. So some of these things may be state violations. If Patel sends somebody out to beat somebody for no reason than they're a political opponent, or to railroad somebody, bring a case against somebody, and that can be proven, and he's given a pardon, that might be a violation of state law. Even Trump's pardon wouldn't cover it in state law. Of course, they'd have to prove their case up. There might be, like the thing happened down in Georgia, they might be entitled to a trial in federal court, but none of that is immunity or impunity. So there are real checks and balances, and that's why a lot of respectable people, Mark, won't take those jobs. I mean, Ash Patel and Bunjingo, okay? Oh my God, if Trump said to me, look, I know what agenda I want to push, find me some honorable people. I could find him honorable people in this country. So could you, Mark. And where would Patel and Bunjingo be on our list?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, of
the
course.
nadir.
I mean, not
the
on
nadir.
It. Yeah. Inlay says they overturn Roe v. Wade. They can overturn presidential immunity. I mean, maybe not this court won't, but
not this court.
But I would say this is an important point. Just if you're focusing on that at all, Inlays and anybody else who signs on to that, presidential immunity right now is granted to President Donald Trump, and if they were to overturn it in the future Supreme Court, you can't go back and say, oh, now they've overturned it, you don't have presidential immunity. No, he had presidential immunity at the time that he was selling pardons, that he was doing everything else that David's talked about. I mean, you can't go back and prosecute for a new law that essentially overturns presidential immunity. Isn't that right, Counselor? I think that's true.
The reality is they wouldn't have the votes.
They're not going to overturn it.
Come in January 20. He's an older man. Trump is not a spring chicken. So the idea that they would.
I hope he lives long enough to see that beautiful ballroom built. My God, we're all looking forward to that. David, we have to wrap up.
He was on the edge of the big house or the White House. If Merrick Garland had appointed a special prosecutor right at the beginning, there's no reason to think that Jack Smith wouldn't have made that case. And the Supreme Court tied it up for a year and a half. Could they have tied it up for 3.5 years? I think that would have been doubtful. But that's one of the history books will mention that Merrick Garland sat around for a year and a half while they had to do that whole shift.
I mean, I used to consider him patient zero, and I've certainly done my share of rants about Merrick Garland, but I must say that I really think the rant and the party deserving of the rant is about Joe Biden. Joe Biden appointed Merrick Garland. I mean, I get it. And you and I know and talk about all the time that he was such an institutionalist, Joe Biden. He's not a guy who's going to come in and shake up Washington and rock the boat. But hey, man, these people are brutal. They are flamethrowers. And you come in there with your tepid bullshit and you appoint Merrick Garland, who slow walks everything. It's an abomination, and we are all paying the price for that now, all of us.
Mark, my last thought, Biden and Kamala Harris beat Trump in 2020. Thank God.
Indeed. David, am I seeing you for lunch on Tuesday?
I hope so. I hope so. And since we're talking about that, I'm so sorry about your cat. I don't know if you mentioned that on the air.
You were so
but
sweet.
I have cats too. And I had cats that didn't make it. And I know you're going through a lot, and you're a stiff upper lip, Mark. You did a great show.
Thank you, pal. It's a brutal time, but I appreciate it. See you Tuesday. Thank you. David Katz, we'll see you next Thursday here on the air. David Katz, everybody. Love him. Love him. Love him.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
What's up? I'm loving it. Love my conversation with David Katz. Katz has cats. Of course he does, John Watson. You're right. I thought the same thing. When he said, we have cats. Of course you do. You're David Katz. I mean, it's almost a law. You should definitely have cats. It's really cool. David was really cool. You know, we do the back and forth. Kim is so wonderful, and she puts together some of the stories that are pertinent and relevant, and even as they break, she'll try to include them. And so we have the kind of a email chain going, I guess is what I'm saying. And so Kim does that, and then he writes to me separately. And
Kim, how are you?
He says, hey, I just want to check in on your cat and what happened. And that's why he knew about that, because he was so lovely that he asked about it to begin with.
Yeah.
But anyway, very cool. And I had other stuff to get to, and I can't believe it's so late, Kim. I am
not even any news.
I blame
today.
you.
All right. Well,
I was going to tell you about the guy that threw a sandwich at an ICE officer.
I know. I'd like to hear that story. That is a wild story, and I think there's video of it too. Excuse me. I need some Coachella Valley coffee.
Oh, good.
We have a blend of the of two coffees today that I'm drinking from Coachella Valley Coffee. Courtney is so wonderful, and she did. I mean, you know, we're weeping like a couple of people who just lost a family member, and so you know, it's so wonderful that she was making the coffee. By the way, Courtney handles all the merch stuff too, and I know that a lot of people have looked at the merch, and some have purchased some new merch, and there's new merch coming, and so you know, we all of these things that we're doing are really serviceable distractions too. So anyway, she blended two different beans, and this is really good, which is always we have two different grinders.
See, I thought you were the coffee maker at your house, so that's interesting. Yeah,
I'm trying to bring in this new group of coffee makers, of coffee brewers, and Courtney is leading that crew. So
excellent.
That's what's happening. But anyway, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is where our coffee comes from. They are our longtime sponsor and partner, and I'd love for you to check them out. They have the best coffee on earth, and as I've said before, but maybe you didn't hear it if you're new, I didn't ever think they'd be a sponsor, and I drank their coffee. I loved it. It was like, it's unreal how good it is. It's hand roasted, all organic, from women-owned farms and businesses that they helped get going. And all these tasting profiles that are on their website, et cetera, read them and see the great work that they do in the curation of some of the best coffee and tea that you will ever taste. And then use our discount, 10% off. Mark T is what you use in the discount code. Get yourself Coachella Valley coffee, gift it to a friend, gift the discount code to a friend. And feel free to do that. I mean, if they're a friend of yours, then they're a friend of ours. They're a friend of the show, and they can have the discount as well. So CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Again, the discount code is Mark T. I want to hear about
the Mark Thompson Show.
This is a viral video that's kind of taken a hold, right? Are these ICE agents that are being confronted by a guy who's just coming out of a... So what is the story?
So here's what I can tell you. There's this man who is now accused of throwing a sandwich at a federal law enforcement officer. He worked for the Justice Department, and now he doesn't have that job anymore. He got fired. Wow. His name is Sean Dunn, and he was seen in a video of this incident Sunday approaching this officer saying they're not wanted in DC. You got to go. You're not wanted here. After several minutes of this confrontation happening between these two, apparently the man Dunn struck the officer allegedly in the chest with this sandwich.
Albert is showing it now for those just listening. Yeah, the man has a big Subway sandwich, looks like the foot long.
Yeah,
and he's throwing it at the officer.
I mean, you got to be really angry and mean business to throw your lunch at somebody. You kind of wanted to eat that.
Point blank. Yeah, he was right there.
So the guy is arrested for an attack on an officer, and because it's a sandwich, and I guess that's an attack. He threw the sandwich at the cop. He's arrested. Now he's losing his job, and he's facing federal charges for throwing a sandwich at this federal agent.
That is wild. The guy is facing up to a year in prison for throwing a sandwich, trying to kill officers on January 6th. A presidential pardon, says Be Aware. That's exactly right.
Exactly
That's the new
right.
America. What is that beeping I was hearing, Albert? Is that Kim?
I don't have a beep.
Oh, okay.
I don't hear it.
I was also hearing an alarm. I wasn't sure who it was from.
Oh, yeah. Man charged in Subway sandwich assault on federal officer. There it is. You see the video. He throws it and then he takes off. That's the video I saw.
Then he books it. There you go.
And he's got all those officers who are chasing him. He could have outrun them, but then there are others up ahead, I think. Then they all kind of closed in on this Subway sandwich thrower.
That's some pretty good camera work, too. I was very impressed by the...
What? I'm sorry?
The camera work. The camera work was good. It was reminiscent of Cops, like back in the day.
Yeah, he did follow the action.
I'm kind of impressed with how fast that guy could run. I mean, he was moving.
I wouldn't have, if you just he's wearing the pink shirt and the shorts, he seemed kind of laid back. And then that he uncorked this act of aggression against these cops who are, armed to the teeth. And then he took off and did so well with the running. I was very impressed, but as you say, they caught him, and he's now, he's now getting the book thrown at him, and he doesn't have a job anymore because he's working for the government. Crazy. Yeah. The next Democrat should pardon him and offer him a job as a federal prosecutor, says B.A. Ware. Yeah. I hope a Democrat wins again. That's a conversation for another day. And hero sandwich, says Tom McCarthy. Very well done, Tom. Very well. The story is a mouthful. Get it? Who said that?
That's pretty good.
Very, very good, Agolf.
Very well done.
Yeah, very
The only other story I had that I thought it might amuse you is that for the first time in Olympics history, there are now venue naming rights that are being solicited in Los Angeles. I mean, it is the Olympics, and now we're going to have what? I don't know. Pick a company that will be hosting the venue.
It has to be, though, because they need to somehow make it pencil out, right?
Yep. So an additional revenue stream.
Yeah. I'm going to yield. I'm just looking at our emails. I was going to try to read you a couple before we wrap up. We have really a great show tomorrow as well. I am so excited that there was an email. I'll try to find it. I'll have it for you tomorrow, asking for the return of Philip Bump, the brilliant opinion writer for the Washington Post, who just took the buyout at the Post. He's not there anymore, I guess. And he's going to join us tomorrow. I reached out to him. He was, it's quite a special email I got, and I'll share it with you tomorrow because it relates to the Washington Post and to Bump. I want to welcome Michael Adams, who's our latest Patreon subscriber. Yeah, how about that, Michael? Thank you. And appreciate you so much, all of you who jump on Patreon and PayPal and support the show. I haven't mentioned it at all through the show, but I just want you to know how grateful I am, because that's the only reason we're here. I couldn't do the show without Patreon and PayPal supporters. I so appreciate Super Chat and Super Sticker. But the reality is that the money that we can plan for all the things that we have to pay for, that comes out of Patreon and PayPal. And that's why those names are scrolled at the end of every show. I want to thank you again, everybody who reached out to me and continues to reach out to me about my darling Frenchie and the loss of our sweet cat. It means a lot. And I'll have more tomorrow. The other thing I wanted to mention is that tomorrow, in addition to Philip Bump, J.L. Cauvin will join us. Yeah. And J.L. has a new special, and it's his special that he did in Toronto. For those who don't know, J.L. does a Trump impression, and even more than the impression, he riffs as Trump. The whole thing is extemporaneous, and he is brilliant. He does an hour and a half as Trump, and Trump on stage in Toronto. And you know how Trump smack talks the Canadian audience? So these people in Toronto, Canada, were really having fun with the fact that JL was there and doing the back and forth. JL will join us for a brief time tomorrow because we have a packed show. There he is. And JL really exploded with the Trump impression. He also does an RFK Jr. impression that's pretty terrific. But anyway, he'll jump in tomorrow for a short time, and we'll get a chance to visit with, one of our favorite people, Richard Delamater, who is my new pen pal. He writes me about 200 emails a day, and I'm loving it. Yes, but they're short. They're mercifully short. Richard Delamater, what did he say? My peoples, would you buy a tie-dye? Oh, I'm trying to do it, and we're all trying to do it. Sorry. A $10 super chat. Richard Delamater is very generous, by the way. Thank you, Richard. My peoples, yes or no answer in the chat. Would you buy a tie-dye T-shirt that says Mark Thompson is a genius from the future? Wow. It would beg the other person to ask, who's Mark Thompson? Bam. Before you know it, you've got it. I see it. Wow.
That's pretty good.
You've got it all thought out. Thank you for that, Richard. Really appreciate it.
Big shout out.
Mark Thompson's a genius from the future. I love that. Hi, Mark and Kim. I love listening to David Katz. Me too. Chaplain Fred. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I agree. He's a great asset that this show has, and I'm really excited that he joins. I mentioned, I guess, witchcraft, and more 1500 is saying, I've met people who practice witchcraft. Wow. That's I'd encourage you to get those people out of your life. Although, there's a whole Wiccan religion thing, which is witchcraft. And there was a security guard on the Fox lot, the movie lot in Los Angeles. And I was doing a lot of stuff over there, and I would see her all the time. And when she'd lean in to get your ID, you'd see this Wiccan thing. And the only reason I know it's a Wiccan necklace is because I said, oh, that's an interesting necklace. What is that? She said, oh, it's Wiccan. I'm in the Wiccan faith or whatever the hell she said. Okay, cool.
It's a religion like any other, right?
Aren't you late for a human sacrifice or whatever you guys do? Yeah, I don't know. It's a religion like any other when you mean it's total bullshit. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I don't think that they do. It's not the same thing as satanic stuff.
I don't know. I mean, maybe you know more. Albert, will you go to school on the Wiccan religion
Google
and tell us exactly how? Maybe I don't mean to smear my Wiccans. I accept all religions equally. What is it?
Yeah, I might just get my Ouija board out and have the spirits explain exactly what is going on.
Don't they dance around the tree at midnight kind of thing?
Well, that seems pretty innocuous, unless it's my tree in my front yard. It's probably pretty cool.
Clearly, we're really.
Is that before or after the sacrifice?
When it comes to Wiccan. Yeah,
I don't want
any with nature, right?
Being one with nature. Oh, is that what it is? Oh,
yeah, they're all about connection to nature, I think, and the power
so
of
it's
the
not.
earth.
I'm so.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
I would like to apologize. I feel bad.
They're not the sacrifice people.
Okay. Well, if that's true, then I do.
I stand corrected.
I do stand corrected. I'm really sorry.
That's like Santeria or something. You're thinking of. We need a theology class.
Yeah.
My words upset so many people.
Apparently, my words did upset a lot of people. The Wiccan community. I really want to apologize to you. I didn't know.
It was wrong. It was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No, Wiccanism, Mark, is in tune with nature, I believe, says Karen Cooper. It's a nature-based religion, Mark. How dare you, says Gail Peck. You're right. I am.
Your inner Wiccan. I don't know what's wrong with you.
I don't know what to say. I'm really sorry.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to apologize to the Wiccan community.
And I wanted to apologize to the
Wiccan community,
the Asian American community.
The Wiccan American community.
All right.
It was wrong. It was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Karen has it pressed. She says Wicca is a modern pagan religion that originated in England in the early 20th century, characterized by its reverence for nature, worship of a goddess and a god. So there.
Oh, that's very. I mean, it seems actually maybe very evolved what they're doing.
Yeah. And they do a fire and drink wine. It's like gather around the fire, grab a cocktail. I mean, what kind of religion is that?
There's never been anything like this.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Apparently there is alcohol involved. Wow. Well, I'll take a meeting on Wiccanism then.
Do not know what you are talking about.
That is the truest thing said today. All right. Yeah, it sounds like a religion I could get into. Who knew? I went from dumping all over Wiccans and calling them Satans and sacrifice-bent crazies to thinking, hey, you know what? I want to be a Wiccan. Sounds great. If you gotta join one, that's maybe one you take a meeting on. I do a theology class, Kim, says Chaplain Fred. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chaplain Fred is probably Wiccan mystics were originated from Ireland, says Chaplain Fred. Wow.
We're lucky to have a show chaplain. We must be the only show that has that.
I know.
Awesome.
Yeah, Wiccan sounds like my religion. Exactly right. Ren 0287 says. Right on. All right, Philip Bum tomorrow, Jim Avila tomorrow, Michael Shore tomorrow, and J.L. Covan tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's just for starters. See you tomorrow. And now, the Great Shadow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you all, Remarkables. You're wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Out of time. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.